when Sophie Cunningham named WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert and Coach Stephanie White in her expose. She wasn't just pointing fingers. She was accusing them of orchestrating a culture of silence and control. Her account describes league leaders who prioritized image management over honesty, pushing coaches and medical teams to manipulate injury reports, suppress dissent, and sideline outspoken players. One of the most explosive claims involves Caitlin Clark, allegedly used as a pawn to protect fragile narratives and league hierarchies.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Cunningham paints a picture of an organization where leadership is more invested in optics than athlete welfare. Her decision to speak out has ignited a movement within and beyond the sport. It's not just about fabricated injuries or fractured locker rooms. It's about power. Cunningham's revelations have unraveled a system built on intimidation and politics, now under federal scrutiny. The future of the league hangs in the balance, but for many players and fans, this might finally be the reckoning women's basketball needs, one that replaces control with accountability and silence with truth. Sophie Cunningham didn't just spark controversy. She detonated the biggest scandal the WNBA has ever faced. Her words weren't whispered, leaked, or hinted at. They were loud, clear, and damning. She stood up and said what no one else dared to. The league she's played for, promoted, and defended is built on lies. In one statement, Cunningham turned the WNBA upside down. She accused the organization of deception, manipulation, and systemic corruption that's been hiding in plain sight for years. And she didn't stop at vague accusations. She named names, cited examples, and pointed to what she calls a league-wide pattern of dishonesty designed to protect reputations, control players, and silence truth. Her most explosive claim centers on Caitlin Clark, the brightest star in women's basketball, the player everyone's watching, and the person Cunningham says became the target of a calculated smear. According to Sophie, Caitlin's supposed groin injury wasn't an injury at all. It was fabricated, an invention, a convenient excuse used to keep the league's most popular player out of certain games for strategic reasons. That revelation alone sent shockwaves through the sports world. Cunningham alleges that league officials wanted to control the narrative, to manage Caitlin's exposure and prevent her rapid rise from overshadowing other players or threatening internal power structures. The goal, Sophie says, was to keep the spotlight balanced, even if that meant deceiving the public and compromising player integrity. She didn't just accuse one team. She accused the system. According to Cunningham, medical staff were pressured to falsify injury reports. Players were told to stay quiet. Coaches were instructed to follow the plan. And all of it, every lie, every manipulated report, every hidden truth, was done in the name of protecting the league's image. Her statements went beyond Caitlin Clark. She said this wasn't an isolated case. It was a pattern. She described how medical staff feared losing their jobs if they didn't comply. She revealed that coaches and executives would override doctors to adjust the status of a player if it suited the league's narrative. And she called out specific leadership figures, including Commissioner Kathy Engelbert and Coach Stephanie White, accusing them of knowing about these cover-ups and doing nothing to stop them. According to Sophie, the WNBA didn't prioritize player health or honesty. It prioritized optics. She painted a picture of a league more interested in crafting storylines than protecting its athletes. When she finally went public, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Fans were outraged. Players were silent. Reporters scrambled to confirm her claims. And before the league could get its story straight, Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, stepped in. His message was direct. If Sophie Cunningham's allegations are proven true, the league could face severe consequences. Silver even warned that the entire 2026 season could be canceled if corruption at this scale was verified. That's not just internal trouble. That's an existential crisis. And if you think that sounds dramatic, it's because it is. The NBA doesn't step into WNBA affairs unless the stakes are enormous. Adam Silver's involvement confirmed what everyone was already thinking. This isn't just another internal dispute. This is a full-blown integrity emergency. Cunningham's courage, however, came at a cost. The moment she spoke, she became a target. Insiders say players were told to stay professional and avoid commenting. Coaches gave no interviews. But behind closed doors, tension skyrocketed. Sophie's statement didn't just expose corruption, it exposed division. According to her, players are terrified to speak. They've watched colleagues get quietly punished for telling the truth, blacklisted for being disruptive. Cunningham described a league where silence is safety and honesty is career suicide. Her decision to go public wasn't about money or fame. She said repeatedly that she acted out of respect for the game and its players. She wanted accountability, not chaos. But chaos came anyway. The accusations triggered multiple external investigations. Authorities, including the FBI and medical oversight agencies, are reportedly digging into the league's internal operations, particularly its medical documentation and management practices. Cunningham's claims forced the spotlight onto a system that's long operated behind closed doors, free from serious scrutiny. And now, the WNBA's credibility is hanging by a thread. This scandal doesn't just threaten reputations, it threatens the future of the league. Fans who once championed the WNBA as a beacon for women's sports are now questioning everything. How many injuries were real? How many game outcomes were influenced by behind-the-scenes manipulation? How deep does the dishonesty go? The core of Sophie's allegations points to a culture of deception, a culture where the truth was secondary to control. Players, she says, have been manipulated for years. Storylines were manufactured, injuries were fabricated, and the same leaders who preached empowerment were orchestrating silence. At the heart of all this is a power struggle that's now fully exposed. Sophie Cunningham claims that figures like Kathy Engelbert and Stephanie White used their authority to maintain a polished image, even if it meant bending reality. They silenced dissenters, punished whistleblowers, and managed media narratives with precision. The league's hierarchy wasn't protecting athletes. It was protecting itself. And Caitlin Clark's situation, Sophie says, was the perfect example of how far that control would go. Her injury, if Cunningham's claims are true, wasn't about health. It was about optics. It was about ensuring that no one player could outshine the league's collective agenda. That revelation cuts deep. Caitlin Clark's popularity isn't just about basketball. It's cultural. She's brought unprecedented attention to women's sports, filling arenas and breaking viewership records. But Cunningham's allegations suggest the league didn't see that as a gift. They saw it as a threat. Now, fans are caught in the middle. They don't know who to trust. The WNBA's public statements have been vague, its leadership defensive, and its players cautious. But Sophie Cunningham's consistency and willingness to name names have given her credibility that the league can't easily dismiss. And then came the political side of it all. Sophie's exposé didn't stop with corruption. It evolved into activism. She began calling for reform, transparency, and protection for players who dare to speak out. She rallied supporters and fans to demand accountability. And that rally worked. Public outrage is at an all-time high. Fans want truth, and they want it now. The FBI's involvement only confirmed that this isn't just sports gossip. It's a matter of ethics, legality, and power. The investigation's scope is broad, reviewing communications, injury records, and administrative decisions that could reveal just how systemic the deception was. Meanwhile, Adam Silver's stance remains firm. He's called for total transparency. If the league's leadership is found guilty of orchestrating or covering up false injury reports, there will be consequences. Severe ones. And that threat looms large. Because at the end of all this, beyond the politics, beyond the statements, beyond the investigations, there's a question that's impossible to ignore. Can the WNBA survive this? Cunningham's revelations didn't just expose flaws. They exposed fragility. The entire league's trust depends on credibility. And once that's gone, no amount of PR can rebuild it. But it's not just destruction Sophie's after. Her goal, at its core, is reform. She said she loves the game too much to let it die in silence. She wants honesty restored. She wants players to feel safe. She wants a league that stands for what it claims to stand for: empowerment, not exploitation. And she's not alone anymore. Other voices are joining her. Former staffers, former players, even fans are forming groups to demand oversight and policy reform. This isn't just one woman's battle. It's becoming a movement. The league is now forced to make a choice. It can fight the truth and watch its credibility erode further, or it can confront its failures and rebuild with integrity. There's no middle ground left. The irony? Sophie Cunningham's act of rebellion might be the very thing that saves the WNBA. If her words spark reform, if her bravery forces transparency, she might end up rescuing the very institution she just exposed. That's what makes this moment so defining, because what happens next will decide everything. If the investigations confirm her story, it will be one of the biggest reckonings in professional sports history. If the league fails to change, it risks losing everything: players, fans, sponsors, and trust. The WNBA has always talked about courage, about standing up, about doing what's right, even when it's hard. Now it's time to prove it. So what do you think? Did Sophie Cunningham do the right thing? Can the WNBA come back from this? Or has too much damage already been done? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you stand for honesty in sports, and subscribe to stay updated, because this story is far from over. The truth is finally coming out. And once it does, women's basketball will never be the same again. Sophie Cunningham didn't just expose a bad call or a misstep. She pulled back the curtain on a systemic failure. She revealed a league that's been spinning plates behind the scenes, hoping no one would notice the cracks, the lies, the manipulation. Now, everyone sees it: the players, the fans, the media, the governing bodies, and they're demanding answers. This wasn't supposed to happen. The WNBA was riding high on a new wave of visibility. Caitlin Clark had just electrified the league, breaking rookie records, selling out arenas, making it cool to care about women's basketball in a way that hadn't happened before. She brought in a whole new generation of fans. She became the face. And that, according to Sophie Cunningham, is exactly what scared them. The league wasn't prepared for someone to eclipse its tightly managed brand. Cunningham says they didn't want one player to carry too much power, even if that player was doing more for the league's exposure than any marketing campaign ever could. So when Clark's rise became impossible to ignore, the league didn't celebrate it. They contained it. How? Fabricated injuries, narrative control, manipulated minutes, silence. Cunningham says the groin injury Caitlin was listed with, it didn't exist. It was a strategic move, a media play, a way to bench her without raising alarms. And when she came back just as strong, just as fast, the league said nothing, because saying anything would have opened the door to questions they didn't want to answer. This wasn't just one incident, either. Sophie described a pattern, a structure built on quiet edits, quiet punishments, and very loud priorities, none of which were about player welfare. She talked about medical staff being pressured to write up injuries that didn't exist, coaches being told to limit player time under the guise of load management, PR teams instructed to keep things vague. Protect the brand. Protect the lie. That's the part that hits hardest, because this wasn't about one game or one player. This was about a league-wide operation designed to control outcomes. And when Sophie spoke out, the machine turned against her. She's already been sidelined, criticized, and subtly blackballed by the same system she once stood by. Other players have gone quiet. Coaches are dodging the topic. But the silence says more than words ever could. Because if she were wrong, if what she said was a lie, you'd expect a full-throated denial. Receipts. Proof. A point-by-point takedown. Instead, vague statements. Hollow reassurances. And now, external investigations. The FBI is involved. Medical regulators are reviewing records. Adam Silver is monitoring everything from the top of the NBA tower. And let's not forget, he already warned the league once. If the allegations are substantiated, if this goes as deep as it looks, the 2026 season could be canceled. That's not a hypothetical anymore. That's on the table. And in a sport already fighting for mainstream validation, That kind of collapse wouldn't just hurt the WNBA, it would set women's sports back years. But maybe Cunningham's hoping it won't come to that. Because despite everything, despite the backlash, the risk, the fallout, she says she still believes in the game, in the players. She's not trying to destroy women's basketball. She's trying to clean it up. Her call for reform isn't dramatic. It's necessary. She wants independent oversight, medical accountability, transparency in player reporting, protection for whistleblowers. She's not asking for anything radical. She's asking for basic ethics. And still, the response from league leadership has been defensive at best, dismissive at worst. Publicly, they've tried to act unfazed. But behind closed doors, sources say the panic is real. There's a reason executives are scrambling, interviews are being shut down, and staff are lawyering up. The threat isn't just Cunningham, it's the truth. Once the investigations finish, once documents are reviewed, once testimonies are heard, it's out of their hands. Because what Cunningham revealed isn't just scandalous. It's structural. It's about power. Who has it? Who abuses it? And who gets punished for trying to hold it accountable? She exposed a climate where questioning authority means jeopardizing your career, where athletes, already underpaid, overworked, and underprotected, are told to be grateful instead of honest. And let's not ignore the gender politics at play here. This is women's professional sports, a space already fighting for investment, airtime, and legitimacy. Cunningham is showing that even here, especially here, there are power structures willing to throw women under the bus to maintain control. The same league that preaches empowerment is being accused of suppressing the voices it claims to uplift. And the fans? They're done. They're demanding more than press releases. They want investigations to be public. They want results. They want the WNBA to stop talking about integrity and start proving it. Sophie's supporters are loud and growing. Social media is full of clips, threads, and breakdowns of her statement. Comment sections are flooded with fans asking why no one else is speaking out, why players are being benched without reason, why Caitlin Clark's minutes fluctuate like a stock chart, why the league's brightest star suddenly goes injured at the peak of her momentum. And through it all, Caitlin herself has said very little. She's remained composed, focused, and neutral like she always is. But that silence isn't apathy. It's strategy. Because no matter where she falls in this mess, she's the center of it. And everyone knows it. Caitlin Clark didn't ask to be a symbol. But now, thanks to Cunningham's expose, she is, whether she likes it or not, a symbol of what happens when players get too powerful. A symbol of what happens when leagues prioritize image over individuals. A symbol of a system that may finally be cracking. And still, the league hasn't learned. Because even after Sophie Cunningham opened the floodgates, the WNBA is still trying to contain the damage instead of confronting it. Still trying to act like it's business as usual. But it's not. Because this story doesn't end with one whistleblower. It doesn't end with one fabricated injury. It ends when the league either collapses or evolves. And the clock is ticking. So what happens now? The investigations continue. Documents are being pulled. Communications are being reviewed. Medical professionals are being questioned under oath. Every player report is now a liability. Every vague press release is now suspicious. Cunningham's gamble, to step out alone and tell the truth, is looking less like a risk and more like a necessary reset. She may have broken the silence, but she didn't break the league. If anything, she might be the only one who can save it. Because fans still want to believe. They want to believe the WNBA can be what it says it is. They want to believe in players, not just PR. They want to show up, cheer, and not wonder whether they're being lied to. But that trust has to be earned back with truth. And right now, the truth belongs to Sophie Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham didn't come forward with speculation. She came with conviction. She laid out what she witnessed, called out who she believes enabled it, and pulled the conversation into the public arena. Now the WNBA is being forced to answer questions it's avoided for years. Not about sponsorships, branding, or growth projections, but about honesty. And let's be clear, this isn't just a PR nightmare. This is an institutional reckoning. Cunningham's revelations have put the WNBA's leadership on notice. She didn't simply accuse them of poor management. She accused them of manufacturing injuries, manipulating player narratives, and prioritizing league image over athlete well-being. That's a scandal. But if proven, it's something much bigger. A breach of trust that could dismantle the very credibility the WNBA has spent decades trying to build. This is the part where fans are paying attention in a different way. It's not just about Caitlin Clark's injury anymore. It's about a culture of silence. It's about how many players were told to stay quiet, how many careers were redirected, how many narratives were pre-packaged and delivered to us with smiling interviews and photo ops, while the truth sat buried in team reports and backroom meetings. And Adam Silver's warning wasn't a bluff. The fact that the commissioner of the NBA had to step in and imply that the 2026 season might not happen if these allegations hold up, that tells you everything. This isn't a small league issue anymore. It's a spotlight moment on the integrity of women's sports as a whole. Cunningham didn't just expose the WNBA. She exposed the fragility of the system behind it. What happens if her claims are validated? What happens if external investigations confirm injury report fraud, coerced silence, and narrative manipulation? The consequences won't be limited to one team or even one commissioner. The fallout will affect the entire ecosystem, from sponsors to broadcasters to the next generation of athletes watching this all unfold. But for all the chaos this has caused, Sophie Cunningham isn't backing down. She's staying loud, staying clear, and reminding everyone what this is really about. Justice for the players who were never given the full truth. Respect for the athletes who sacrificed their bodies for this league. And accountability for the people who've been allowed to twist the truth with zero consequences until now. So where does this go next? That depends on what the league chooses to do. It can keep stonewalling, or it can start facing what's already unraveling. The truth is already out in the open, and more is coming. If you believe players deserve transparency, if you think the WNBA needs to clean house, hit that like button. Tell us what you think in the comments, because voices like Sophie's matter, but so do yours. And subscribe, because this story, it's only just beginning.